Earthly pleasures. If you can pry your eyes away from such delights for just a moment, I'd like to have a word with you. I'd like to ask a question, specifically. What makes you, you? I ask this because in my time pondering this question, searching upon all the materials in front of me, I've never been able to find a consistent answer until this very moment. And now I know what you're thinking. There are lots of things that make me who I am. It's my personality, it's my physical traits, it's my experiences, it's the emotions that I have. A wide variety of things. You can say, my name is Steve. I am the way I am as an individual because I'm funny, I'm charming, I'm smart, I'm athletic, I have this job, I live in this city, these people are my parents, so on and so forth. But the thing we have to consider is, do these traits actually apply to you as an individual? I'm gonna bring up a certain paradox, one that's existed for quite a long time. It's called the ship of Theseus. The way it goes is that Theseus's ship would get damaged or broken for a variety of reasons over time. And it would come into port, and they would have to repair it. So, if the mast was broken, they would replace a new mast. If the deck was broken, they'd replace the deck with new wood. If the anchor was broken, then they'd replace it with a new anchor, so on and so forth. The question that we bring ourselves to in regards to this is that, given enough time, every single part of the ship would be replaced with new parts. And we ask, is it still the same ship? Is it still the ship of Theseus, even if all the original materials have been replaced with new ones? Because in essence, all the materials that were used to fix the ship could have been made into an entirely different ship. And then you would say, well, no, that's a different boat. But in this circumstance, since it was slowly moved in, and it just kind of gently pushed out all the other parts, most people who did not know the history would not question whose ship this was, or its identity, so to speak. And the same goes for most people. Most people would go, well, yes, he still owns this ship, he still rides this ship, of course it's still him. This gets a little more tricky if we apply this in a personal matter. We can look at this from a variety of angles. Let's use one of, say, to go a little bit cliche, an evil clone. If there was a clone of you, he looked like you, he talked like you, and he impersonated all your mannerisms perfectly, and he just snatched you away in the night and took your place. And again, he has a perfect impersonation of you, and he looks and sounds just like you. So to everyone else, your friends, your loved ones, your family, your coworkers, they can't tell the difference. And so, if he does everything that you do, in the same way that all the new components of the ship of Theseus are just the same as the old one, does the difference matter? And now most everyone will say, yes. They'll say, because it's not me, it's an impersonator, it's somebody else. This is important for today's topic, because we're going to be going over 2 games that tackle these notions. These things that are tied very closely to the notion of transhumanism, the idea of people moving out of their bodies to transcend beyond the physical form in a variety of different ways. And it ties directly to this, because what you think you know about yourself is not all that it seems. The first game that we're going to be covering is Soma. Full disclosure, there will be spoilers for both this game and the one I will be covering in the next part, the Swapper. For those of you who are expecting this to be more of a review as opposed to an analysis of the themes therein, I will summarize it as such. Both of these games are excellent. I would give them a rating of about 9.5 out of 10, both for story, gameplay, and graphical presentation. Going any further would be severely spoiling it. Just know if that the themes we discuss in these videos are appealing from the intro that I've just given, then you most likely will enjoy these games very much. So, once again, I will be spoiling both of these games in their entirety from this point forward. Soma delivers its themes of transhumanism in a way that is done primarily through story and dialogue. I mention this because in the next episode we'll be delving over how the Swamper is able to convey these same themes primarily through gameplay and implications via optional text logs within its world. The basic premise is that Simon, a comic book store employee living in Toronto, has a brain injury, and he wishes to do an experimental procedure in an attempt to get himself fixed. He goes in to get a brain scan, and in the middle of the brain scan, somehow wakes up in the middle of a very dark and dreary place. It seems to be some sort of mechanical lab with lots of black goo everywhere, lights strewn about, random electricity zapping everywhere. Simon can hear the thoughts of machines and corpses if he touches them. He realizes that this is not just any location, such as an underground bunker, but it is actually at the bottom of the ocean. And, most surprising of all, he encounters several robots who, much to his confusion, claim that they are human. Not in the sense that I am a sentient AI, therefore I am just like you, but in the sense that they are flesh and blood, 100% human, and always have been. Even when confronted with facts that contradict the premise that they are human, such as them being made entirely out of metal, or finding the corpse of the person that they claim to be, they will not accept this reality. Instead, they will look at their hand, a 2-pronged claw made entirely out of metal, and say, "Look at my hand. I'm flesh and blood. I can't possibly be a robot." Along the way, he encounters Catherine, a woman who has been finding her... Along the way, he meets a woman named Catherine, who has found herself inside the body of a no longer mobile machine, and thus Simon must carry her around in a personal tool to accompany him. Throughout the game, they encounter many other dangerous circumstances that they need to overcome, and eventually they come to a plan, an agreement in which they will save themselves and the human race. Now, the issue they come across is that, for all intents and purposes, almost every human on the ship is dead. There are a wide variety of machines or biological life forms made out of machinery that are violent and protective of their territory. And all the materials they need are on the exact opposite end of the place that they are at. They discuss many things along the way, but one thing of note is that initially, when you play the game, you'll notice that you have everything as it's supposed to be. As in, you have hands, and you have feet, etc., just like any normal person. But as soon as you encounter a dangerous situation, such as when the room is flooding, you look down at your hands, and Simon realizes he's wearing something akin to a diving suit, because his hands turn black, and they have glowing dots on them, and he somehow has a respirator on, all of a sudden. It's later revealed, and this is even told to him throughout the game, which he does not even accept until much later in the game, that he is not really Simon. He is an advanced computer with a brain scan implanted in its memory, affixed upon the inside of a diving suit, with biological machines acting as motors within the suit. He is told this by Catherine, who says that you're just a computer stuck on top of a diving suit. And he doesn't accept this. He doesn't immediately realize this and say, oh, well, this is just how I am now. He says, no, I don't want this anymore. I want out. I don't want to do this. It's that notion I mentioned before, this strange kind of denialism, where you have traits that are not of what you once were. Simon was a human. The person you play as after the intro of the game is a robot with a brain scan of Simon within him. And yet he still says, I am Simon. I truly am me. Nobody else is me. And it's not until he looks into the mirror that he finally sees that he is nothing more than a diving suit. And even then, he thinks that it is the original him trapped inside of this mind, so to speak. The issue we come across is that in a regular situation, say that the original Simon was still alive, he would see this thing walking around, talking like him, saying that he was really Simon. He would say, that's just a robot clone. And yet both of them are stringent on the fact that they are the real Simon. This is a major issue later in the game. Simply put, they need to go to the bottom, rock bottom of a trench so that they can save the human race by taking a pod with all the brain scans of the people on this ship, launch it into space via a satellite that will roam around the universe, soaking up solar rays to keep itself powered, and preserving the minds and memories of all the humans that were left aboard on the station at the bottom of the sea. And so, since he does not have a diving suit that can survive the immense pressures located at the bottom of the trench, he must find a new suit, a pressure suit, so to speak. But he himself cannot fit inside of one, because he's already in a diving suit, which is meant to fit a person, and therefore a person wearing a diving suit can't fit inside another diving suit. So instead, they need to affix a computer onto another diving suit and transfer his mind into the new one. There's a caveat, though, one that is hidden from Simon by Catherine until it is too late. He gets into a small pod so that he can transfer himself to the new diving suit, and he wakes up in the new one, good as new. But then he hears something very strange. He hears his own voice in another room, asking Catherine, "Did it work? Have you started it yet? When will I be in the diving suit?" And then a very sudden and abrupt cut from his sentence. Silence. For you see, what Catherine did not mention is that the transfer that she spoke of was not taking the digital data from within that mind and transferring it over to the other one, but it is merely copying it into the new location. Think of it as the difference between cut and paste and copy and paste. What this means is that the original Simon's mind is still within the first diving suit and is still in that room, thinking that the transfer hasn't started yet. And your perspective from the game takes place from the one in the pressure suit. Catherine did not mention this and tried to hide it from you because of the potential moral implications. This new Simon wakes up and is noticeably upset, because just a moment ago he was that Simon, so to speak. They consider this a sort of coin toss, in that the person who is in the new suit, so to speak, has a 50-50 chance of being the same consciousness that was in the previous one, in the same sense that the new person will have all the same memories as the previous one, so all it will seem like is a small gap during the transfer, and voila, they're good as new. You have a 50-50 shot of staying in the same body or being in the new one. Simon's given a choice, since this old one, the previous Simon, has been shut off, as to whether or not they want to kill him so that he no longer has to potentially suffer with this very tragic set of events that had befallen him, or to let him live, give him a chance at survival. And it is your choice as a player as to whether or not you wish to do so. But the thing that becomes interesting is this notion. What if you had not had that happen? If this was a situation in which you strapped yourself into a chair, and someone pressed a button to transfer you to a new body, and it didn't work in the way you thought. The new body gets up, it starts talking like you, acting like you, and then your friend and this new body, acting just like you, have to leave you behind. How would you feel in that instance? Because as far as the new body is concerned, it is you. But you're not you. You most likely would be violently upset. The fact that you'd be abandoned at the bottom of the ocean, with your friends leaving you behind. You would say that it's not you, but to everyone else, it is. And you have to question what I questioned before. What makes you you, if the only person who can possibly tell the difference is yourself? And this brings me to the sort of conclusion I've come across from this. Consciousness or identity, because they're both very intertwined, is based entirely on perception. I say this because if you have a twin, a clone, or a copy in any sort of fantasy sort of scenario, a little fictional device for this thought experiment, the only difference between you and any of these people who are imitating you or copying you or are other versions of you is the fact that you are perceiving your existence through whatever body that you're in. So to each of these Simons, they are the real one because they are perceiving reality from their point of view. Same thing with the previously mentioned robot. He is saying, I am me because I'm perceiving things through where I am, to the point of delusions of grandeur. Because he doesn't see himself as a robot, because he doesn't identify as a robot, so to speak. He thinks, I am myself, I am a human. Thus, I only see parts of me that are human. I don't have a robotic hand. I have a human hand. I have fingers. And this becomes somewhat problematic again to when they get towards the end of the game. They get towards the satellite, and they initiate the uplink so that they can transfer their minds into the ship and then launch it into space. So, they launch it. And this game has two endings, which play sequentially. The first ending has it so the Simon you play as loses the coin toss. You are sat in a chair in this large site meant to launch the satellite, and it launches without you. And you're sat there cheering that you've succeeded. only for Catherine to console you upon the anger that you feel that you are not the one to win the coin toss, so to speak. Because now you're stuck at the bottom of the ocean. There is no paradise waiting for you, because that's what the satellite is. It's called the Ark, and it is meant to be a pure, perfect paradise for sentient minds to coexist and wander around in. And this is a problem that was even discussed before the conclusion of the game. The reason why so many people are dead is that a small cult, so to speak, had been initiated. The cult, in and of itself, had this assessment that if your mind, which transfers into the Ark, is not your own, but it could be, given this sort of metaphorical coin toss, the only way to guarantee that you win the coin toss is to eliminate the option of residing within your own body. So what people began to do, secretly, without telling the people who were running the operation, is that they would have a variety of tools at their disposal, razor blades, cyanide tablets, etc., in which they would immediately commit suicide upon completion of the upload, so as to prevent their consciousness from being in their body, so to speak. They consider it a form of transcendence, in that if your mind is in the Ark and you kill yourself, then your mind will transfer to the Ark right when it completes. And this is a problem for Simon in the end, because now he sees himself as being stuck at the bottom of the ocean. Catherine reminds him that he informed him about this earlier, that it is a copy that is put on there. It is not a transfer. She gets so upset with their arguing that her circuits break. She's no longer able to speak. For all intents and purposes, she has died from her hardware being overused. And so the Simon in the pressure suit is left at the bottom of the ocean with nothing left to save him, and no hope of ever attaining a normal life again. However, once the credits play, a second ending occurs, in which you now play from the perspective of the Simon who won the coin toss, so to speak, from the consciousness data that was transferred onto the Ark. You wake up in a cave, you exit out into a beautiful forest, and you're given a small quiz. This quiz is relevant because it was displayed earlier in the game as an optional little file that you could look up while digging around computers. It asks you such things as, do you feel like yourself? What do you think of your existence here? Do you feel different? If given the choice, would you want to leave the Ark and thus die? Now, after the rather dark ending we had just perceived, our notions of what is or is not real or correct or right are very skewed compared to what we said at the beginning of the game. At the beginning of the game, most people state that they feel fine, but by the end of the game, it's a lot more nihilistic. What this brings to mind in regards to why I mentioned this is done through narrative and not through gameplay is because the gameplay is very similar to the gameplay styles of its predecessor, Amnesia: The Dark Descent, in the sense that monsters will be patrolling various areas, you have no way to defend yourself, and you have to navigate these areas without being caught by these monsters. And now, the monsters do serve a role in the plot, in that they show off the variety of very disgusting creatures that have been made as a result of this post-apocalyptic scenario. But they don't tie directly into displaying the themes present in the game, which is what we'll be discussing in part 2. Thank you very much for watching. If you'd like to see more, please check the description below for both my channel and this channel, where I'll be posting content on any 3 of them. Feel free to comment below your own thoughts about this video or anything else regarding the game itself, as any and all commentary and feedback is well appreciated, and I really would like to see a discussion on the themes present here, to see if anyone else took these themes away from the game, or if I was just incoherently rambling for half an hour. If you feel so inclined, please feel free to like, subscribe, or share this video, as any exposure for this channel and my content is highly appreciated. I will see you in part 2 of this video series.
Your heart plays with my head, clever torture. What it is, never clear, not fair. Some will win, some will